In the fall, before the school year starts, you'll need to go into the grade setup area and set all of your defaults for how you want your gradebook to be handled. You'll do this in each of your courses. If you need to link sections together, I would do that before you do your grade setup, because that way it will impact more classes or more sections by doing less work. So link your sections first, and then you're going to go over here to grade setup on the left margin. And in this area, there's a few different things that we need to do. First of all, I'm going to take you over here on the right-hand side and talk about the grading scales. The numeric grading scale is going to be the default the first time that you get into Schoology and the first time that you look at grade setup. This numeric scale, though, unfortunately comes from Schoology. We can't get rid of it. We do not want to use that one. So you're going to be starring either FLB numeric, if it's a course that receives percentage grades, or OSNI, if it's a course that gets outstanding, satisfactory, or needs improvement. So you're just basically setting your default so that it will immediately default to that scale for you. Then we're going to go to the center section, and the rest will be all done here. Under categories, you're going to add at least one category, because anything that's added into Schoology as an assignment, then we're going to have to put in a category for it. So even for kindergarten, I understand that kindergarten is not using Schoology as a way to record grades, and parents aren't going to be checking grades inside of here, nor will students. However, when you add an assignment that you want them to complete in there, we do need a category. So even if you just call it classwork or evidence of learning, these are assignments that are proving what they're learning in class. So we need some sort of a category. So inside of here, I'm just going to add a few. Homework, we're going to go ahead and leave this set as total points. You have a choice here as to whether or not you want to drop the lowest scores in that category. So that's just kind of up to you. If you would decide, you know what, I'd like to drop the lowest one score or the lowest two scores within that category, you certainly could. I'm just going to go ahead and do that and hit create. I'm going to add a couple more here. Classwork, and we'll create an assessment one as well. So I'm just adding in all of my categories that I want to have. Now, if I want to reorganize these, I certainly can. But what I can also do is I can sorry, I didn't mean to actually click on that. I can star the one that I want to use as my default. So what that means is that if I star classwork, that means that every assignment that I go ahead and add inside of Schoology, it's going to default to the classwork category without me having to change it to classwork. So you want to kind of think about, what do I assign the most of? Because it will be less clicking for you in the future if you star the one that you want as just the default. It doesn't mean that you can't change it, it just means it's less clicking for you. These arrows here, if you wanted to reorganize, you certainly can, the order of them. All right. The other thing that we can do is we can weight categories. So if you are at a level where you're using weighted categories, then you can do that as well. So in the weight column, I'm going to go ahead and just simply change. We want this to be worth, I don't know, 50% for classwork, 20% for homework, and 30% for assessments. So we just kind of throw some numbers in here, and you see that it's adjusting the percentages as I do that. So you change the weight category. Again, that's not required that you do weights, but if you are at a level where it is required, more at the secondary level, then you can check that box and adjust the weights there. So that's for your categories and your weights. In this area, the grading periods and the final weights, you're going to leave all of this alone. It's going to come straight from ProSoft, and we're not going to touch that at all. Okay, and then in this area here, final grade settings, again, we want to change our gradebook scale. We want to set this to FLB numeric or OSNI, depending again on the grade scale that you're using for that particular course. We are not going to check this box here. Rounding is built into the gradebook scales already, and so we do not want to check the box about rounding the final grades and all of that sort of stuff. So just leave that one as it is. All right, and then last, well, sorry, not lastly, but the control grading columns in the gradebook, we can just leave all of these unchecked. There is a time when we may check one of these, and that's if we need to override a grade at the end of a quarter, but we're going to worry about that at another time. And lastly, in this visibility settings section, you are going to check off both the first one, which is always checked by default, and we're also going to check to hide the overall grade in the student grade report. The overall grade means it's going to average all the quarters together, and we don't want that on the reports that the parents and the students see. Okay, so at this point, I hit Save Changes, and that's going to just change or save all the things that I've done so far. But there's one more step here that can save you some time. Remember, I told you that if you link your sections together, then the grade setup that you've done for this particular section would also be visible in the others. But what about in the instance when you have courses that can't be linked together? We do have the option to copy settings here. So I can copy the settings to another course, and I can say I want the categories, the grading scale, the rubrics. We didn't talk at all about rubrics. We're not going to worry about that in this video, but which ones do you want to copy into a different gradebook? And you could just check them all off and hit copy, and they will copy over, so that way you don't have to go through and continually, add the categories in each and every one of them, or setting your default gradebook scale. The one thing that it does not copy for you, though, and notice that that was not in the list of things that it was copying, is the visibility settings. So you will need to go into each and every course and check that extra box to hide the overall grade in the student grade report. But other than that, the copy settings will save you a little bit of time when you're doing your grade setup.